and maybe not. The honourable member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an absolute honor to be able to rise in this place and bring forward a perspective on this bill and speak in support of the amendment that has been brought forward by my colleague and friend, the member for Cumberland Colchester. Sorry. It is very terrifying to me because this is effectively another fairy tale promise that this government is pushing forward, along with a long line of fairy tale promises when it comes to things they are trying or claiming that they are doing on behalf of Canadians. And this bill is not a Pharmacare plan. They might state that it's a Pharmacare plan. They can repeat it over and over and over again, but that doesn't necessarily make something true. Just because you say something over and over and over again doesn't make it so. And so this is something that I will repeat over and over again, because if they think that that somehow works, then maybe we need to bring this forward as well. But this is a legislative framework to look at possibly one day, maybe kind of, sort of, creating a Pharmacare scheme of sorts. But it's not a true Pharmacare scheme because it will only cover a couple different drug types for a couple different spaces. And it goes directly and flies directly in the face of many provinces. In fact, my home province of Alberta, very early on, the health minister, a former colleague of mine, Adriana LaGrange, was exceptionally clear that Alberta would pull out of a federal Pharmacare plan, citing subsidy program concerns and a lack of consultation from the federal government. Citing a lack of consultation from the federal government. Provinces, whether this government and their NDP partners in their coalition want to admit it or not, provinces and territories in this country are the ones responsible, constitutionally responsible, for the delivery of health care in this country. And so not doing adequate consultation with provinces and territories before bringing forward a bill that will directly impact the delivery of health care is exceptionally concerning and should concern every single person in this chamber, whether they are, whether they care about what the Constitution says or not, because inevitably we will see something similar to what we have seen with so many of the bills brought forward by this government that will end up resulting in a whole bunch of lawyers getting rich from court cases when they get found out 5, 6, 7 years from now that, unfortunately, they did not fall within their jurisdiction and they overstepped. And so the government has an opportunity right now. We're giving them an out. We're giving them a pass. They can accept the amendment from my colleague and vote against this and allow us to have a little bit more consultation, have some real conversations about this. But they're not concerned about that. They want to bully through. They think that Ottawa knows best. And frankly, I can speak very clearly. In Fort McMurray, Cold Lake, and right across Canada, the people in the communities know better for their communities. The provinces know better about how to deliver health care than Ottawa will ever know. But they won't pull the cotton out of their ears for long enough to listen. And that is very unfortunate. And like I said, this is just a promise. This is a promise along the lines of so many broken promises over the last 8 years we've had from this government. They promised affordable health care. Reality is they've doubled housing costs. They promised that the carbon tax wouldn't cost you anything. Yet, the reality is that we found that 60% of families are paying more because of these carbon taxes. They promised that taxes would go down. Yet the reality is taxes have gone up. And they promised safe streets, and yet the reality is we see crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder. I point out these broken promises because Canadians deserve to understand that after 8 years, this Liberal NDP coalition government just is not worth the cost. And it bears repeating that they are yet again trying to buy votes with a fairy tale scheme of sorts to possibly one day look at something that is something that should be looked at, but they should actually consult with provinces and territories, something that this government has decided to completely abdicate their role in. I do want to highlight the fact that I will be splitting my time with the member for Souris Moose Mountain, one of my colleagues on the Health Committee, who also is someone that is very passionate when it comes to provincial jurisdiction, as well as making sure people are getting the adequate care that they have. And so back to the broken promises that we hear time and time again, this is indicative of a pattern. And if we don't look at the patterns, and if we're going to take a government at their word because they claim that this is new and shiny and just trust them, that terrifies people that I talk to in Fort McMurray Cold Lake. That is something that people don't want to hear. They know full well that Ottawa breaks more things than it touches. I hear that day and day out from people saying, this might be an okay idea, this might be something that we should talk about, but I don't actually trust that they're going to get it done. And housing is a perfect example of this. We have seen that under the last 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, housing prices have doubled. People in my generation do not think that they will ever be able to afford a home. It takes longer to afford a down payment on a home than most Canadians of the generation before had to pay their mortgage. Mr. Speaker, if that doesn't terrify everyone in this room, there is some serious problems at play. And so we will continue fighting for Canadians because, frankly, Canadians deserve to have someone that's fighting for them right now. We understand that the NDP did this in a request to grapple onto some form of power and prop up a government that they complain about on every occasion, and yet they vote with them. They vote with them time and time again. They'll get up in question period, have a big fight, and yet when push comes to shove, they co-sign everything that this Liberal NDP government puts forward. And frankly, Canadians have had enough. I hear from Canadians every single day. So do all of my Conservative colleagues. We hear from people that are struggling to put groceries in their fridge and feed their kids a nutritious meal. Families that are struggling as to whether they're going to put the heat up in the dead of winter or put food on the table. These are real, true, honest concerns, but this government seems to be completely negligent when it comes to actually standing up for Canadians. And so the news is positive. Conservatives have been very clear. We want to see a few things from this government, especially in this upcoming budget. We want to see them axe the tax. We want to see them build the homes. We want to see them stop the crime, and we want to see them bring forward a dollar-for-dollar law so that Canadians do not have to pay for their extravagant promises and costs. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, the Liberals would do well if they took my advice and voted for this amendment and allowed us to axe this bill.